Turn it on, we're ready.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to our Tanya class. We are now working our way through chapter 32. It can be found in your Tanya on page 145. Last week we reached to the right column on the bottom where that circle and the triangle is. The words "as for the Talmudic statement." In this chapter, the Alter Rebbe, the author, is talking about the mitzvah of love your fellow as yourself. And that's the basis of the entire Torah. Everything else is a commentary on that one mitzvah. And he explained that the reason is because the whole purpose of Torah is we're a composite of two elements. We have our bodies, our physical, materialistic selves, and we have our souls, the neshama in Hebrew. Now, these two forces, or these two entities within us, are opposites. The soul is drawing and pulling us upwards towards godliness and holiness and matters of the spirit, whereas the body and the human soul, basically our body and its life force, is drawing us towards self-centered, materialistic pleasures. Not very godly and not very God-oriented. So these are two opposing forces within us. And the reason that when you analyze the mitzvah, love your fellow as yourself. Now, people like to say it. It's easy to say. Love your thy fellow as thyself. But when you start to analyze and see, is that even possible? Could you really love someone as you love yourself? It's hard enough to love people in general, but to love them as much as love yourself, that's a stretch. You're always going to love yourself more than you love others, especially strangers. So the Alter Rebbe says that is indeed correct. You will not be able to love your fellow like you love yourself if your main focus in life is your material body and its needs and its wants. Because at the end of the day, you and someone else are two different people. Your body is yours, and someone else's body and materialistic self is someone else, and you're not the same. So you're naturally going to love yourself more than you love your fellow. However, if you're able to put your total focus on the matters of the soul, on your neshama, and being that the neshama is a part of God that is invested in each one of us, so in that sense you're like siblings. You share the same spiritual DNA. And even more than that, he says. So when you really see it that way, that your family members, because what ties one sibling to the other? The fact that they come from the same parents. That means they share the same DNA. And if you focus on the fact, and we learned this last week, that if that becomes your focus, then you can love someone else truly like you love yourself. Because you both are the same essence. Your soul and his soul are the same. They come from the same God. They are part of the same God. And therefore there really should be no reason you should love yourself more than you love someone else. If your body is out of the equation, if your soul is the main focus. So that's really what the whole Torah is all about. To raise the soul over the body. To raise our connection to our soul, to make that the focus rather than the body. And that's what the mitzvah of love your fellow is all about. To recognize and focus on the soul rather than the body. Doesn't mean that you should scorn the body, you should neglect your body. That's a bad idea. But it should only be an extension of your connection to God. If you can do that, you'll truly love another person the way you love yourself. That was the first half of the chapter. The second half of this chapter, Alter Rebbe is going to talk about a related issue, But as an introduction to this second part of this chapter, the Alter Rebbe is going to discuss in this chapter, is there any room for to ever hate anyone? So before we learn it in the Alter Rebbe's words, let me pose a question to all of you. Is there, in your mind, in your thought, is there anyone that you hate? And you don't have to point out a person, but let's talk about it more in theory. When is it okay to hate someone? Or is it ever okay to hate someone?
Of course it is.
It is?
Why not?
I'm asking, so
Yeah.
elaborate.
Especially if someone doesn't like you.
If someone doesn't like you, you should hate that person?
Well, for other reasons. I mean, not just the word hate itself, Rabbi. I mean, for someone who's done something to you that was not very nice, it's hard to like that person. For me, it is, with my personality.
No, I understand, but I'm not talking about if it's hard to like that person. I'm talking about is it ever legitimate to hate another person? I'm not talking about even if someone hurt you.
Yeah, I do.
I'm not talking about your natural feelings.
Right.
I'm talking about right and wrong. Is it ever right and ethical to hate someone?
I think so.
Okay, so tell me when.
Like, what, you mean?
When is it okay and ethical to hate another person?
Somehow when your mind tells you, and you react in such a hateful way, it seems like it's hard to be really nice to that individual or people or whatever.
Very different. I'm not asking when is it okay not to be nice to another person. I'm talking about when is it okay to hate another person.
I would imagine
Well,
it's...
when, like I said, when somebody...
It's a big difference, Art. There's one thing you hate to not be nice to that person because he's nasty to you, so you stay away from him, you don't want to be nice to him.
Right.
It's a very different thing when you say, I harbor hate in my heart for that person. Is that ever okay?
Like I said before, for me, yes.
Okay, I hear your answer.
For me, yes.
Okay, what do you
And
think?
I can live with that, too.
I would imagine it's only a time when you have people who are killing your people, at war with you, oppressing you, and you have no choice but to defend yourself. I would imagine that would be the only time
Well,
it
you
should be
think a
allowed.
man like Hitler,
Right,
you hate him
right.
for what he did. Or anybody who's done to other people besides Hitler.
Let me shift the question a little bit different. Would you say it's ever legitimate to hate another Jew?
It is. Yes.
Under the same grounds.
If he behaves like Hitler?
Yeah, under the same grounds, yeah.
Right.
If another person did something very, very bad to you,
And
your
short of
family,
that, you say it's never okay.
I would imagine.
Rabbi, how do you
No,
define,
I'm not saying my opinion. I'm asking
what's
for
your
yours.
definition of hate, Rabbi? How do you define it?
I don't think it's a complicated word. I think everyone knows what hate is.
I mean,
If you have you have a dislike, not only a dislike, but it's a strong feeling of rejection for that person. The hate is hate. We know what hate is. It's not a complicated term. Alter Rebbe is going to now address two statements in the Talmud where it seems that the Talmud says sometimes it's okay to hate someone, which is a harsh thing, really, when you analyze it. Where, we should be focused, our modus operandi should be love. You should love another person. But I always say that the Alter Rebbe doesn't play. There's no games here in these chapters. This is the raw truth. He gets to the core essence of truth. Love is love for real. When people say love everyone, what does that even mean? Should you love everyone?
no.
No?
No.
Why not?
Why should I? I mean,
Why should you not? The question should be, why should you not? The natural feeling should be another human being. You should love. Why not? What's wrong with? Why should you not have a certain natural feeling of love to every human being?
That's hard to do for me, is to love everybody.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm speaking for myself.
It could be because you're taking the word love to mean what it really means, not
Right.
just fancy
Right.
semantics. Love means love means commitment. Is there a mitzvah to love every person you ever, every person?
I don't know.
What do you think?
I think we learned that.
A commandment. Is there a commandment to love every human being, 6 billion people?
I don't know. I don't want to say.
What do you think? You walk onto a plane. You walk onto an airplane. You're flying wherever. Is there a commandment to love everyone sitting on the plane? You go to the zoo. There's thousands of people. Is there a mitzvah to love every person in the zoo or in Disneyland or wherever you go? You go to Sawgrass tomorrow. Thousands of people walking. Is there a mitzvah to love everyone there?
You don't know everyone.
So you can't love them if you don't know them?
Well, love is strong and hate is strong. Those
I agree with you.
So, you know, if you don't know the people,
When the
How do you love
let me
somebody
answer
that you
this
don't
question.
know?
It's not a rhetorical. It's a rhetorical question. It's, when the Torah commands love every single Jew like you love yourself, it's a commandment to the Jewish people to love your fellow Jew like you love yourself. What is the meaning of this mitzvah? You walk onto El Al flight. You should love everyone sitting on the seats. I mean, you don't know them. You never met them. They could be. You don't know anything about them. How are you supposed to love them? What does this even mean? Love everyone like you love yourself. It's some kind of nonsensical utopian idea that in the real world, it just doesn't add up. What is the Torah saying? If you should love everyone like you love yourself. Really, when you think about it, you walk onto a plane and you see 200 people. You're supposed to love everyone on that plane like you love yourself? Is it a realistic expectation? Does it really make sense? And I know we all love to say it. The Christians, they love the religion of love. Love thy fellow as thy love thyself. Well, let's get down to what does it really mean?
We have to use our senses, and as Lynn said before, if you don't know these people and you cannot judge whether they're someone worthy of loving.
But the mitzvah in the Torah is to love every Jew like you love yourself. It doesn't qualify if you know them. It doesn't say if you know them well, or even if you know them superficially. You may have never met them. You land in Australia tomorrow, and you walk into a Jewish community center, you see 300 Jews. You never met them, you never knew them, you will never know them. You're leaving tomorrow. You're never going to go back there. Should you love those 300 people like you love yourself? Just because they're Jewish? What is the meaning of this mitzvah? In other words, we say this mitzvah, it's an important mitzvah, means commandment. What is the meaning of this commandment? Is the Torah, is God being unrealistic? Is he asking us to do something that's totally unrealistic, it's not even possible? Or when he says it, he means it? I think when he says it, he means it. So how could that be? How could you love every other Jew like you love yourself? So I go back to the example of walk onto an airplane. Yeah, it's unrealistic to expect me to have a feeling of love to everyone over there. I don't know them. I never saw them. Probably will never see them again. Love is reserved for family and good friends. That's what love is. Love is not a game. Love is reserved for family, for the people you know and you care for. That's what love is. That's what you're supposed to love. When the Torah says, love your fellow Jew as you love yourself, what the Torah is really telling you is the mitzvah is to see every single other fellow Jew as your family member. And if you can do that, you will love them. It's not a game. This mitzvah is not some fancy idea that it's a cute statement, your slogan. Love thy fellow as thy love thyself, which has no realistic meaning. It has realistic meaning. What the Torah is telling us, figure out a way to see that other, because love is reserved for family. That's what family love, good friends, family. See every other Jew as your family. How could you do that? How could you see every other Jew as your family member? He's not your family member. He's not your brother, he's not your uncle, he's no one. He's a stranger, a complete stranger. The Alter Rebbe in this chapter says he's not a stranger. He is truly your spiritual family. You share the same DNA. You and him have the same neshama, the same soul that God gave every single Jew at Mount Sinai. And if you can focus on that, you will be able to love every single person. There should be no reason you shouldn't. If you know he's your brother, if you know she's your sister, you will love him or her. So that's the first half of the chapter. The Alter Rebbe is saying they are your family. A Jew is your family because they share the same spiritual DNA. You share the same soul. That's what makes the Jewish people the Jewish people. We spoke about this. But now the Alter Rebbe is going to address, as I said, two statements in the Talmud that seem to indicate that there are some times that you can hate another person, even a Jew. It's a strong statement the Talmud makes. Let's read it inside. As for the Talmudic statement, it's on page 145 on the bottom. So before we start reading it, I'm going to sum up what you all said to me. When I asked you, is it ever okay to hate someone? You said if the person is like a Hitler. Yeah? So let me ask you a question. How about a Bernie Madoff? You know who that is? Is it okay to hate him?
Yes.
It is? You think so?
Yeah, without a doubt.
He's not Hitler. You wouldn't compare him to Hitler. Okay.
What he
So
did
what?
to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, he destroyed a lot
So
of
what? So when is it okay to hate? In other words, because he stole millions and billions of dollars from people.
Well, now-
How about if someone steals thousands of dollars from people? Is it
Same
okay
thing.
to hate? So where does this end? If someone steals $1 from you, you're supposed to hate him all of a sudden?
That's a little different.
So for $10, what's that? Where's that break?
My limit is $1.50. Right? Did I hate him? You know?
In other words, he never killed anyone. He stole money. You understand? My question is, it's important to nail this down, so to say. What is it okay to hate him? To hate such people? You walk into a jail. You see a lot of criminals. You're supposed to hate them? Is it okay to hate them? And if they're not in jail, that no one caught them, are you supposed to hate them too? And let me ask you don't sin? Are you a sinner? Have you ever committed any sins against God? Should we start hating anyone that sins? You see how the slippery slope here? You're going to start hating people for stealing money. So unless you're going to qualify it and say like this, when someone sins against a fellow man, we should hate him. When someone sins against God, we shouldn't hate him. Because that's just between him and God. He didn't really do anything against me. For example, if someone doesn't keep kosher, it's a sin, right? Well, someone lies, it's a sin. Someone violates the Sabbath, it's a sin. Should we start hating people that sin? Or you're going to say it's only okay to hate someone that sinned against another person. So, for example, someone spoke Lashon Hara, gossiped. He gossiped about someone else. It's a sin against man, right? Should we hate such a person? Should we hate gossipers? You see what I'm saying? Where does this begin and where does this end? Is it okay to hate? It's a serious question.
Usually,
So someone was not nice to you. He didn't say good morning to you. Then you thought he should say good morning to you. Well, he was nasty to you. He just embarrassed you in public. Are you supposed to hate him? Is it okay to hate that person? Where is it okay? When is it okay to hate another person?
when another person really does something wrong.
Well, I just gave you a lot of examples
Like
of people
Madoff.
doing something.
Madoff.
So you're saying that's like a big sin. A small
That's
sin,
it.
not so terrible. So if someone does a small sin, you don't have to hate him.
But Rabbi,
Someone does a
doesn't-
big sin, you have to hate him. What's a big sin?
But Rabbi, it doesn't make you a bad person if you hate somebody, if you have a valid reason to hate
That's the
them.
question. When is a valid reason to hate? That's exactly what I'm talking about. I didn't say if you hate Hitler, you're not a bad person.
Right.
If you love Hitler, you're a bad person. But when is it okay to hate someone? When does it make you a bad person, and when does it not make you a bad person? Hate is a bad thing. Well, it depends, like I was saying. Sometimes hate is a positive thing. Someone has a feeling of hate towards a mad person like Hitler, Himmler, all these people. You would say that if someone has a feeling of love to these people, there's something wrong with him.
Yeah.
Okay, so hate is not necessarily always wrong. When is it right? When is it okay to hate someone? Some people will say it's never good to hate. I've spoken to such people. It's never good to hate. Even Hitler, don't think about him, they'll say. Okay, we can argue, fine, we'll have that argument. But you should never harbor feelings of hate in your heart. It's an argument. I'm not discounting, I'm not saying one way or the other. But is it, when you get to your opinion, is it okay to hate? When is it okay to hate? It's a very important, because when you start saying you can hate a person like Madoff because he stole $1 billion, how about if someone stole 100 million? Oh, that's a lot of money too. Yeah, we can hate him. How about $1 million? Oh, that's also a lot of money. We can hate him. And $500,000? How about $1,000? So to you, $1,000 is not the end of the world. But someone that works as minimum wage, $1,000 is 3 weeks of work. You took away 3 weeks of work for him now. That's a lot of money to him. So it becomes so subjective, you know what I'm saying? It becomes a real slippery slope. So it's okay to hate for you, it's okay to hate at that amount. For you, not, because to you, you're a rich man. What is, the Torah doesn't play those games.
That's either good or
So I want to define this, it's very important. Why do you hate a person like Madoff? Or a person like Hitler? Forget I hate Madoff, let's talk Hitler. Why do we hate a person like that?
I think it's very clear when it comes down to defending.
Why do you think so?
Defending yourself, your family, your people.
I'm not talking about self-defense. You have to defend yourself. I'm talking about hate. He's dead already for 50 years, 70 years. You're not defending yourself from Hitler now. There's no Hitler threatening anyone now. But you hate him. Why is it okay to hate him?
This is a person
That killed
your
so many people. Okay.
He's really evil. That's strong.
So how about if you killed one person? You would also say that.
I agree with that.
Killed one person, you should hate him.
Yeah.
Why? What's wrong with killing a person?
If it was unjust.
I have no doubt about that, but I'm asking, let's talk it out.
If it wasn't in self-defense and it was done unjustly, then I agree with hating that person.
Why? What's wrong with killing someone?
It goes against God's laws.
Oh, so it's against God.
And it's wrong. It's morally wrong. Both.
Morally wrong? Why? Why is it morally wrong?
Because you don't want what is done to you,
You know that he didn't think it was morally wrong,
Who, Hitler?
Yeah.
Well, that's a different
Right.
thing.
Oh.
But we see it
We
as
see it
morally
as
wrong,
murder.
yes.
Why do we see it as morally wrong? Why is murder morally wrong?
Whether you believe in religion or not, you don't want something done to yourself that, you wouldn't.
But that's subjective. That's a subjective thing. You don't want something done to you. Is it right or is it wrong? I don't care what you want. I want what's... In other words, if this becomes my personal feeling, so then you'll hate whoever you want. I get that. I'm talking about what's the right and wrong. The objective right and the objective wrong. When is it objectively right to hate someone? You're saying when someone murders someone without a reason. A murderer should be hated. I'm asking you why. Why do you say that murder is morally wrong? Because your inner morality tells that to you. Every normal person knows that murder is wrong. But where do they know that from?
From religion.
From the Torah. Who said that murder is wrong? The Torah says that murder is wrong.
Thou shalt not kill.
Thou shalt not murder.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So the Torah says it's wrong. So when it comes down to it, right and wrong is really about God. It's God that decides what's right and what's wrong. Ultimate morality. Or it's not relative morality, it's absolute morality. What's absolute morality? The Torah, whatever comes from God. Whatever God laid out in the Torah is right, is objectively right, and whatever he laid out in the Torah is wrong, is objectively wrong. So he said a lot of things are wrong. He said that murder is wrong. He said that stealing is wrong. He said that violating Shabbos is wrong. So if you're going to hate people that violate God's morality, so you're going to start hating a lot of people, You'll end up hating a lot of people, because a lot of people are violating God's morality. Guess what? The people in this room probably also once in a blue moon. or once in a white moon. So, what's the deal here?
Okay, you have said that Hitler, what he was doing, he didn't think it was anything good. I mean, anything bad.
Right, he really didn't. He
did it
was
because
convinced that he was doing the morally right
He
thing.
knows, and he hated it.
But they
hated
convinced
the
themselves.
people
Obviously, they
that he
convinced
is
themselves,
killing.
and a lot of people convinced themselves. If you mistreated a cat in Germany, you got punished. You know that.
A cat?
Yeah, you mistreated an animal, you got punished.
Yeah.
They were very moral when it comes to certain things.
Who?
In Germany in 1940s. But 6 million Jews, no problem. You can
Okay.
send them straight into the gas chamber. So even if they conjured up in their own mind some warped thought process that made that right in their mind, that's why morality, I know, that's why morality has to be based on God. Because if you leave it up to man's,
Yeah.
devices and man's mind and his feelings, you can end up with Germany. That's what happened over there. A whole society went off the rails.
Mhm.
They became the most immoral people, not even knowing it, thinking that they're doing the world the biggest favor.
Rabbi, don't you get to feel now that we're changing here dramatically?
It could be.
You know,
Yeah. But the question is, and I don't want to belabor this question, you get what I'm saying, it becomes a very difficult question. If you can hate someone that did something immoral against God, then a lot of things we're doing are immoral against God. And should we hate someone that it goes against God? Is that okay to hate someone that goes against God? It's a question. It's not a statement. I'm asking: should we hate people that fight God? Imagine someone is in a war against God.
It all depends what your beliefs are, Rabbi.
I'm talking about objectively. I'm talking about from the Torah's perspective.
Yes, it is.
Let's see it in Alter Rebbe's voice. I think I elaborated on the question enough. Let's see what the answer is. As for the Talmudic statement to the effect that one who sees his friend sinning should hate him and should tell his teacher to hate him, strong words. They hate him also. Talmud says that if you see a friend sinning, you should hate him and tell that person's teacher to hate him. That sinner's teacher to hate him. It's unbelievable. First of all, what does sin mean over here? Sin can be the 613 commandments. There's a lot of sins in the Torah. A guy lies, that's a sin. Should you hate people that lie and tell their teachers to hate them? Sounds like a radical statement from the Talmud. The Talmud is usually very mellow, not very mellow, but kind. The Torah is the Torah of kindness and love. And what's going on over here? So the Alter Rebbe qualifies this very, very detailed, in great detail. This applies to a companion in Torah and precepts. Number one, the Alter Rebbe says, when the Talmud is saying that such a person you hate, number one, and you need to hear this till the end. Number one, it's talking about someone that's your companion. The language is very precise in the Talmud. That only if that person is a scholar in learning. He's not an ignoramus. He knows Torah and he's learned and is educated in the Torah. That means he's a companion in Torah and precepts. He fulfills mitzvahs, he does God's commandments, and he's very well learned in Torah. Nevertheless, you see him sinning in certain sins, like he's weak in certain areas, that's a person you can sin. So fast? Not so fast. Wait a minute. There's another few qualifications. Let's see. Having already applied to him the injunction, thou shalt repeatedly rebuke thy friend, amitcha, meaning him who is with thee in Torah and precepts, and who nevertheless has not repented of his sin, as stated in Sefer Charedim. What the Alter Rebbe is saying over here is as follows. When is that statement in the Talmud apply? First of all, he has to be educated in Torah and mitzvahs. And he does the Torah and mitzvahs. Basically a religious person, a very learned religious person, observant person. But you see him violating repeatedly certain mitzvahs, or a certain mitzvah, and you already rebuked him. You told him you're not allowed to do this is wrong to do. And yet he ignores you and does it anyway. So then you have to analyze what's going on there. What's wrong with this person? He knows you're not allowed to do this. If he's an ignoramus, he doesn't know. You can't, what are you going to do? There's nothing, you can't blame such a person. It's not like he's, no one should sin, but you can't really, in other words, let's take, for example, a person who's uneducated. He didn't grow up in an environment of religious life, Jewish religious life. Doesn't know the Torah. His parents never sent him to a yeshiva, a Jewish, place where they study Torah. He doesn't know. He never grew up with this. And he sins. He doesn't keep kosher. He doesn't keep the Sabbath. He's not, he's not doing he's not living the way God would want him to. Is he at fault? Could you blame that person really at the end of the day? Could you really blame him?
No.
He doesn't know. What do you want from him? He never learned. He was never really brought up with this. So does that mean that it's okay that he sins? No, it's not. It's a pity. You have to help him, educate him. Make him aware. Try to help him see that the person does better tomorrow. But hate him? What are you hating? He's not fighting. He's not doing anything wrong, essentially, internally, inherently. Hate is a strong thing. Someone that's in a war against God, I could see it. Someone that deliberately is fighting a war against Hashem. I could see the idea behind despising such a person. Imagine a person is down here, living in God's world, and fighting him deliberately. Who's fighting against God? How many people do you know that are fighting against God?
Lots.
You do?
No, I'm not.
I don't even
any
one. I don't even
in
know one
particular.
person. I don't even know one. I don't know such a person. I can't name you even one person that I know that has an agenda to fight against God.
Well, Rabbi, how do you classify somebody who doesn't believe in God?
He doesn't believe. He doesn't know. So it depends. Okay. So
don't you
someone
think
who was brought.
Don't you think he's fighting against God?
No,
If he doesn't believe in God?
He doesn't know anything about God. Why should he believe in
He
God?
probably knows something about God.
Nah,
but
what does
doesn't
he know?
accept it.
Well, it depends. So if he was brought up in a world where God was a real thing, and he turned against it, and he's fighting it because he just hates it, that's a problem.
Right.
People today that say they don't believe in God, they don't believe because no one ever told them that no one ever really seriously educated them in to believe in God and to understand what that means.
See, I don't believe that, Rabbi.
You don't?
No.
Tell me, kids today in America,
I believe everybody who's born in America knows what the word God means.
they know what it means.
Right.
Do you know what Shabbos means?
Do I know?
Yeah.
Personally? Yes.
Yeah. So would you say that if you don't, I'm not talking about you personally,
Right, no, that's
but
fine.
any person, any Jew that today knows about Shabbos,
Right.
but he doesn't observe the Shabbos.
Right.
You're going to say that he knows enough to be considered someone who's really violating Shabbos? He doesn't know anything about Shabbos. He heard it. He heard the idea Jews keep Shabbos. There's something called Shabbos. He knows what Shabbos is. Someone ever taught him how to keep Shabbos? The beauty of Shabbos? Nah, that's not the case with most Jews today. So if they violate Shabbos, are you going to say they're violators of Shabbos? Intentionally violating Shabbos? You can't say that. They don't know anything about Shabbos. They know a little bit. They heard it, they saw it, they read about it once in a while. That's considered violating Shabbos.
We're talking about.
I'm not talking about an
We're
isolated
talking about
thing.
the word God.
It's the same thing. Someone that says, of course, when you're born in America, most people know about a God.
Right.
But Did their parents sit down with them and explain to them what this all means? Did their school teachers explain to them what this all means? In fact, it's the opposite. Today, they're moving God out of the schools. They're moving God out of society, unfortunately. So if a kid grows up today and he becomes 20, 30 years old and God's like an elusive idea, yeah, he heard about it. You know, he walks by the street, he sees a synagogue, he sees houses of worship, but he doesn't really know what it is. He never sat, no one ever really educated him in this. So such a person says, I don't believe in God. How is he supposed to believe in God? First, such a person probably doesn't even know what he's saying. You know the famous story, it's not so famous, but I'll tell it to you anyway. There was a chassid, there was a Jew that once came to I think it was the Alter Rebbe, the author of this book. And he was a heretic, one of these people that you consider heretic. You know what a heretic is? Someone is he's against, he's how do you, what's a heretic? Someone that it doesn't believe in religion, opposes the belief in religion. So he was talking about God. He's a heretic. He doesn't believe in God. And he was talking to the Alter Rebbe. I think it was the Alter Rebbe. So the Alter Rebbe taught at the end of the conversation, or somewhere in the conversation, the Alter Rebbe told him, the God that you don't believe in, I don't either believe in. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know anything about God. You believe in, you don't believe in, you don't know what you're talking about. The God that you don't believe in, I don't either believe in. You don't know what God is. You're an ignoramus. Most people today are ignorant about God. So they don't believe. How should they believe? In other words, they believe, they don't believe. That doesn't mean anything. Those words mean nothing. He does believe in God. He doesn't realize. The little bit that he knows, that's what he's not believing in. You understand? That's called not believing in God. He doesn't know anything about it to say, I don't believe in it. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't mean anything. I don't believe in the Torah. A lot of people say, I don't believe in the Torah. What do you know about the Torah to tell me that, to say that you don't believe in it? What is it? Tell me first what it is that you don't believe in. He can talk, after 30 seconds the conversation is over. He doesn't know what to say about it. He doesn't know anything about it. So what do you mean you don't believe in it? Imagine I told you, do you believe in stupins? Do you believe in stupins? What's that exactly? I don't believe in stupins. Of course you don't believe in stupins. What is stupins? You don't know anything about it. Well, it doesn't mean anything to you. I don't believe in the Torah. The Torah to him is like stupins to you. He doesn't know what it is. He heard the word. He heard there's something called Torah that people believe in, that they wear black hats, That's called not believing in the Torah. That's called not believing in God. He's an ignoramus. They don't know anything about it. Such a person you're going to hate. Such a person you can hate. The premise of the Alter Rebbe is every person should be loved. Period. That's the mitzvah. You have to love every person. You're your family. Now, are there exceptions? They're very rare, is what he's saying. You saw a Talmudic statement that says you see someone sinning, you should hate him. Wait a minute, not so fast. Not so fast. First of all, that person has to be completely educated in Torah. And that person you have to have already chastised and rebuked and said, you're not allowed to do that. Nevertheless, he's doing it. Why is he doing it? He knows that God doesn't want. He knows about God. He's an educated person. He grew up around this. He learned it. He studied it. He himself observes a lot of Torah and mitzvahs. But with regard to certain mitzvahs, he's not just lax, but he's violating it openly. He doesn't care what you tell him. You tell him God doesn't want. He knows that God doesn't want you to. That it's against the Torah. He does it anyway. So what does that mean? That means there's something really rotten there. There's a certain aspect of him that's really rotten, really evil, really not good. He knows God. He knows he has a relationship with God, and nevertheless he violates him. Imagine your own mother and father. Imagine this happened with your own mother and father. You have a brother who loves his mother and father. He's committed to his mother and father. Yet there's a certain thing he does that he knows his father and mother hate it. They're looking at him when he does it. In front of their eyes he does it. and he stabs him in the back, or he stabs him in the heart. I mean, when he does it. He knows he's not, the parents hate this. I'm giving you a parable. So if he doesn't know his parents hate it, you can't blame him, right? An ignorant Jew who sins against God, he doesn't know that his parent hates this. So what are you blaming him? There's no bad. He's not bad. He's ignorant. But a child that knows that his mother and father hate a certain thing, and he lives in their mother and father's house, he has a relationship with them, and yet the mother's looking at him and he does that thing against her deliberately, almost deliberately. Would you say there's something rotten about this person? Something wrong here. Something really evil in this person. Go outside the house and do it in front of her face. You're going to do it? This is your mother who you love. That's what you do to your mother? There's something rotten here. There's something really evil there. And there are the other brothers telling him, Mommy, Ma doesn't like this. What are you doing? She's standing here. Don't do this. And he does it anyway. Could you imagine such a scene? What would you walk away thinking? What would you walk away thinking? You see such a scene. You're in a living room. There's a mother and a father. You'd see a boy doing something not good. And the brother is telling him, or the sister is telling the brother, Mom and Dad are right here. You know they hate this. Stop. And he says, I don't care. I'm doing it anyway. And his mother's looking. Could you imagine you saw such a thing? What would you think about this kid?
I would say that he's got some problems.
There's something rotten there.
Right.
It's not just disrespectful. There's something deep.
Why is he
deep.
antagonizing his parents?
That means he's totally.
He's planting a bad seed.
He's totally careless about them. There's something wrong with this. There's something really bad inside of him, where he's so careless about his beloved mother and father. How could you do this?
He just wants to do that because he wants to do that.
But it's much worse.
No, it's way beyond that.
If he knows that his mother doesn't want him to do it, and she's right there looking, he does it anyway, and his sister is telling him, his sibling is telling him, you know that you're not allowed to do this. I know, but I'm doing it anyway. I don't care about that. But they're looking, they're right here, they're sitting on the couch. How could you do this? The heck with them. There's something seriously wrong there. Should you despise that? That's something you should despise. There's something wrong there. That's despicable. That is despicable. So should you hate the person? Should you hate the person? Now this is the way it is that's what Alter Rebbe is describing here. Someone that knows God, he knows what the Torah is all about, he's well educated, he feels like he's a connected Jew, and he's been told that this is wrong, and he knows it's wrong, and God is looking, because God's everywhere, he sees what we're doing, and he does it anyway. There's something rotten here. Yeah. That should be despised. That should be but someone that's an ignoramus, what do you want from him? Imagine the scene where the child is doing something, and his mother and father are there, and the brother says, you're not allowed to do this. I'm not? I didn't know that. That's a different story. How do I know? How do I know they're not allowed to do this? Or no one is telling him anything. No one is there to tell him anything. They're sitting around watching him do it. He has no idea that they don't like this. Do you see a problem there? No one's saying anything to him. No one ever mentioned to him that this is not thing, that's something that the parents don't like. And he's ignorant of that.
But why doesn't the parents try to?
They didn't. They're not talking. They can't speak. They can't speak. They have a problem speaking. They're ill. They can't speak. Would you say that that's a problem?
Yes.
Can't blame him.
Yeah.
No, but you can't blame him. There's nothing rotten in this child. He doesn't know that his parents don't like this. So what do you want from him? A Jew that's uneducated has no idea what God wants. No one ever told him what God wants, and he's doing something that he's unaware that God doesn't want him to do it. Such a person you're going to hate? Such a person you have to love and educate. Help him out. Teach him about his father. Teach him about his mother. He doesn't know anything about it. My mother and father didn't teach him. What do you want from him? He didn't have a good teacher in school. No one taught him about Torah. That's a person you have to love. Not hate. That's a person you have to educate. Help him out. Bring him closer to God. Maybe he'll like it. Maybe he'll do the right thing. So the Alter Rebbe is saying, when the Talmud says such a thing, it's a harsh thing, he's talking about a rotten person. And even then the Alter Rebbe says, look what the Alter Rebbe says now. Let's read these words again, they're where we started before. As for the Talmudic statement to the effect that one who sees his friend sinning should hate him and should tell his teacher to hate him, also this applies to a companion in Torah and precepts, fully educated person. He knows what God wants, having already applied to him, and not only that, he already told him this is wrong. He applied to him the injunction, thou shalt repeatedly rebuke thy friend. Meaning, what's thy friend? His friend is him who is with him with thee in Torah and precepts. He's at your level. He knows as much as you do. And who nevertheless has not repented of his sin, as stated in the Sefer Charein, then there's something rotten. But as for the person, and even that person, the Alter Rebbe is going to say soon, it's not so simple to hate him either. We'll get to that in the end of the chapter. But as for the person who is not one's colleague and is not on an intimate terms with him, Hillel the elder said, the great sage Hillel said, be of the disciples of Aaron. Aaron was the brother of Moses. And he was a lover of people, loving peace and pursuing peace. He always loved everyone. Loving the creatures and drawing them near to the Torah. Pay attention to the words of it. It says he loved creatures. What is a creature?
You think of animals.
Well, yeah, you think of animals as creatures. We're not creatures.
Yeah.
We're creations. Creatures means they're creations of God. The Mishnah. This is out of the ethics of our fathers. The words are precise. When do you say about another person he's a creature of God? When you have nothing else to say about him. There's no redeeming quality there. The only redeeming quality is that God created him. That means Aaron loved every creature, even someone there was nothing good there, other than the fact that God created him. Even them, he loved to no end. And the Mishnah says, you should love his disciples. You should be like Aaron, that extended love even to such people. The only value they have is that they're created by God, nothing on their own. Can you imagine? The lowest of the low. This means that even in the case of those who are removed from God's Torah and His service, and are therefore classified simply as creatures, one must attract them with strong cords of love. Perchance one might succeed in drawing them near to the Torah and divine service. Maybe you'll make them closer to God. Maybe you'll uncover their good. And even if one fails, you tried, you reached out, and you loved him, and you failed, he didn't turn around. Well, so what? So what you lose? On the contrary, one has not forfeited the merit of the precept of a neighborly love. So so you extended love to a person. That's good. You had that benefit. So in other words, Alter Rebbe is saying, love even someone that has no redeeming quality, other than the fact that he's a creature of God, totally away from Torah, totally away from he has no idea. I mean, it doesn't do any good in this world, on any level. Such a person you should love. On the contrary, that you should love even more. It's a great story I once heard. This was the Lubavitcher Rebbe. When in the 1940s, the late 40s, the Rebbe was living in New York. His father-in-law was still alive, the previous Rebbe. And the father-in-law put his son-in-law, our Rebbe, in charge of the educational institutions of Chabad. And as such, he was raising funds and he was keeping it all going. And a lot of people were giving donations, and he would meet them in the office and speak to them. And he saw a lot of these people are very, they're not keeping their Torah, they're not keeping the commandments, they're not keeping kosher, they don't even keep Shabbat, whatever it was. And at one point, he was beginning to feel guilty, and they're bringing in checks and money and they're helping. But here the Rebbe felt, I have an opportunity to say something to them about their observance. Should I do more? Should I really make sure that they, not let them get away with it, right? And people would say to the Rebbe, you're a little lax with these people. You let them you're not telling them what you should tell them. When you have their attention, they're in your office, tell them to stop putting on film. Tell them to keep Shabbos. Chastise them for not keeping kosher, But the Rebbe didn't. And he felt, maybe I'm wrong, maybe they're right. So he went to his father-in-law, the previous Rebbe, and asked him, what is his opinion? So the Rebbe told him like this. When a mother has a child, she loves the child to no end, right? What happens when she has another child? So what does she have to do now? Split half of her love in her heart she gives to one child and the other half to another child? No, she has enough love for both children. She doesn't have to split anything. The heart gives 100% love to this child and 100% love to, there's enough love. He has a third child, there's enough love for a third child. That's the way it is, right? But when a mother and father have a child that's born with a deformity, God forbid, with a missing limb, a leg is missing, born not healthy. The nature of parents is that to such a child they extend even more love. That's just the way it is, because they're missing, they're lacking, they're deficient. You extend even more love openly. The Rebbe said to him, when a Jew comes into your office, and he's not putting on film, he's missing his hand. That's how the Rebbe put it. He doesn't put on film on his hand. That means he's missing his hand spiritually. He's lacking a limb. He doesn't go to shul. He's missing his legs. He doesn't keep kosher. His tongue is cut off. That type of thing. Such a person you have to love even more. It's like a mother that when she has a child that's deficient, that's missing something, you love even more, not less. So the Rebbe said to him, don't worry, what you're doing is fine. Love them, just positive reinforcement. Don't chastise them. If you find an opportunity to tell someone he's capable of listening and you can get through to him, sure, but these are people you have to love. More than even the people that are doing everything the way they should. On the contrary, love them even more. The creatures. Aaron loved every creature. Every person. Be of his disciples. So now I'm asking you, today in the world today, we have 15 million Jews in the world today. How many of them, of those that don't keep Torah and mitzvahs, were educated to keep Torah and mitzvahs, but they left it? How many do you think there are like that?
How many?
Not very many. Very a fraction of a fraction of a percent. Tiny. Right. 99.9.9 of Jews that are not observant today is because of one reason. No one educated them to be observant. They don't know what it is. It's not that they know completely ignorant, but for all intent and purpose, they weren't brought up with it. So what do you expect? So you're gonna hate. You think that there's something rotten there? There's nothing rotten there. They don't know. Give them a chance. Teach them. You'll see what happens. You can't love people that there's nothing bad there. You can't hate person that's not bad. A person who's bad, okay, I understand. You hate the bad. So he says, today, by the way, today's day is this. There's no room for hate of any Jew today. And then he continues, and even with regard to those who are close to him, we'll finish up now. Even with regard to those who are close to him, meaning they are fully educated and they learn and they know just like you, and whom he has rebuked, and which we said before that there's room for, that's what the Talmud means when it says to hate, yet they had not repented of their sins. When he is enjoined to hate them, there still remains the duty to love them also. And both are right. It's interesting. The Rebbe is saying you should hate them and you should love them. What does that mean? How do you hate them and love them at the same time? So some will say maybe it means you should really love them, but you should act as if you hate them. When they come and ask you for a favor, don't do it. But really in your heart you love them. The Alter Rebbe says no. They're both true. Because what did we say? A person is made of two souls. We have two truths within us. We have a part of us that's pulling us away from God into self-centered pleasures and temptations and pursuits. But then we also have a soul that's direct, that's very, very pure and holy and wants godliness. Right? Hate the bad within the person and love the good within the person. Look what he says. Even with regard to those who are close to him and who he has rebuked, yet they had not repented of their sins when he is enjoined to hate them, there still remains the duty to love them also, and both are right. Hatred because of the wickedness in them, and love on account of the aspect of the hidden good in them, which is the divine spark within them. Every person has a divine spark within them, and that's his main essence. So that you shall love to death, which animates their divine soul. He should also awaken pity in his heart for the divine soul. You should, when you realize that the person has a divine soul and is never lost, and is not functioning within him, you should take pity on that person. For she is held captive. That soul is held captive, as it were, in the evil of the Sitra Achra, the evil of the other side, which is not the holy side, that triumphs over her in wicked people. In other words, there's love and there's compassion. What is love? What's the difference between love and compassion? What do you think? Before we ask you that question, what is he saying? Do you understand what he's saying over here? You can have both feelings at the same time. Even a person who you should hate. And they don't exist anymore today. I want to make that very clear. There's almost no Jew that that when the Talmud says that, it doesn't apply to anyone today. Trust me. It doesn't apply to anyone today. No one today is educated, knows about Torah and mitzvahs, has been in this and now is in a deliberate opposition to God. That doesn't exist today almost. I don't know of anyone that has that. Today's people who are not doing what God wants is for one reason and one reason only. They have no idea what it's about. Teach them. Love them and teach them. Bring them the light. Bring Torah to every Jew. With love, with care. Mm-hmm. And even the person who, as I said, doesn't exist today. The person that is allowed to be hated, right, in the Talmudic statement. Even that theoretical person, Alter Rebbe says, hate only the negative within him. The good, he still has a good thing. He still has a neshama. He still has a soul. That you should love. And focus on the fact that that's the most important part of it. But it's never, sadly, it's in exile. It's captured by the negative, which is overpowering the good. So have compassion on him. Compassion destroys hatred, as he says, and awakens love. Compassion is when you see the totality of the person, you see his good and his bad. Love is you love the good. Compassion is when you see the totality of the person, the good and the bad, and you see, wow, this is such a sad story. A person has such a good side in him. He has a powerful, godly soul that gives him the ability to be, godly and holy. And look what's going on. He's completely captured by his negative. It's such a pity. What happens when you have the feelings of pity, of compassion? You're going to hate him more? You're going to hate him less. It's going to destroy the hate. And he gives a little proof of it, which I won't get into now. As is known from the interpretation of the text, to the house of Jacob who had redeemed Abraham. Okay, I'm not going to get it. But the point is important, is understood. Summary, until this point, what the Alter Rebbe is basically saying, you can't hate anyone, almost. Especially in today's day and age. No one fits this category that the Alter Rebbe, that the Talmud says you can hate. There are no such people. And even then, when there was such a person, theoretically, even them you have to love the good side of them. And therefore have compassion on the fact that, look at this, what a pitiful situation. Today, there's only one attitude we should have towards a fellow. Pure love. There's no room for anything other than love. Now, is it easy to love someone that stole $1 million from you? No, it's not easy. But we're not talking about such people. Let's leave those people out. That's not the question there. I started with that because I wanted to bring out, to hear from you when you think it's okay to hate someone. You're hating someone if there's any reason to hate someone, it's only because he's in a fight, in a war against God. There are no people today that I know that are in a war against God. Even those that say they are, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know anything about God. It's not. So just be there for them, love them, and maybe you'll turn them around even on a revealed level. I'm talking about just in general, regular people. People that, there's a whole debate, the Rebbe, for example, was very much promoted the idea of going out and outreach. Go out and find Jews that don't do the mitzvahs, don't know the beauty of Judaism, and love them and bring them and teach them. And a lot of other groups saw that as what are you doing, Lubavitcher Rebbe? How do you... These are Rishonim, they're wicked people. They're not fulfilling the Torah and the mitzvahs. They're wicked, you don't have to love them. I'm not joking, I'm serious. And the Rebbe said, what? They're wicked? They don't know any better. What do you expect from them? It's like a kid was captured, right, when he was born. A Jewish kid was born, and he was taken captive. And he was brought up in an environment that was... He knows nothing about Judaism, and he's not living a Jewish life. Are you going to say, but he's a wicked person, he's not keeping Shabbos? He was captured when he was a baby. What do you want from him? Today, that's the situation with most of us. Were they initiated into a life of Torah and mitzvahs? No, they weren't. Most of us weren't. So what are you talking about? Why would you hate such a person? How could you not love such a Jew? On the contrary, you should love them even more. So today, that's the bottom line. And then he ends off in the parentheses. As for King David, peace unto him, who said, I hate them with a consummate hatred. Those are strong words. You ever heard of King David? The king of Israel, the first king of all of Israel. The second king, sorry. He was referring to Jewish heretics and atheists who have no portion in the world of the God of Israel, as stated in the Talmud tractate Chabad, beginning chapter 16. He's talking about a certain individual of his time who their entire existence was, they developed a hatred to godliness. They knew God. They were Jews that they were raised with it, but they became heretics and atheists in the real sense of that word. They developed a hatred for godliness, Torah, mitzvahs for God, and they set it out as their mission to fight it. Such a person maybe have lost his connection. He's lost his connection to God. Doesn't mean he doesn't have a neshama anymore. No, he does. They still, any Jew, once you're Jewish, there's no way you can lose that soul. But it could be so disconnected that there's almost there's nothing openly lovable anymore. Could that ever come out of the complete concealment and reattach? It could, probably. But that's a very unique situation. It's those are very, very different kind of situations. So someone is in a war against God. openly, and he knows God, like Amalek, the nation of the Amalekites. They knew God and they fought against him. There are certain Jews that happened to, sadly, throughout history. There were some. That's a different person who made it his life's mission. To fight God and fight godliness is a different thing. But there's who knows such people today? Doesn't exist. Again, even there is such a person, it's because he doesn't know anything. So what's the summation of chapter 32? For us, the most important mitzvah, most important value is to love your fellow as you love yourself. And the only way to do that is by seeing him as your family. And they are our family because we share the same spiritual DNA. We have the same soul coming from the same God. It's like we're brothers and sisters. And that's the only attitude we have to have towards another fellow person. Fellow Jew especially. Because we share the same soul. So when you see another person, love him. That's the natural state, is to love that person. It has to be such an extreme example where it ever becomes legitimate to hate the person. I'm willing to say categorically that I don't believe such people exist today, where the Torah would sanction hating them. I'm talking about in the Jewish community. I don't know of any. Bless you. So that's the story, and this became the heart of Hasidism. The chapter 32 in Hebrew is Lamed Beis, 32. 32 is heart. The word 32 is Lamed and Beis, which makes up the word Lev, which means heart. This chapter became the heart of Tanya, the heart of this book. Because the heart of all of Torah and all of Hasidus especially is love. To love your fellow Jew as you love yourself. And if you can't do that, you're missing the whole basis and the whole foundation. The rest is commentary on that one mitzvah. Now go do the rest. But work on this. It's easy. The Rebbe makes it easy for us. He really tells us what a Yid is, what a Jew is, a neshama. It's a little late, it's 11:15, so we'll stop here, and we'll be back next Sunday for more. Chapter 33. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Rabbi.
We will see you. Thank you for watching, all of you.